Brody, good to see you this Wednesday morning, buddy. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing good. Question posed to us by a caller. I want to get to you off of the start here, and a lot of it is Jayden Daniels, right? He is evolving.
I thought it was going to be lingerie.
We can go there. We can go there.
What is your take on lingerie? Go ahead and tell us.
Yes or no?
I mean, yeah, bro. Like, I have no reason to be against it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little art goes into it. You know?
Right? There you go. Thank you, Brody.
Congrats on the sex, Brody. Jeez.
Jayden Daniels is evolving in front of our eyes. He makes LSU feel like a different team if he plays like he did last week. What did you see last week, and what is the ceiling of the full data now that we've got 6 games?
Yeah, right. I mean, what made that game, like, we've all been surprised watching college football, right? Like, that happens all the time. Like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I don't know if I've ever been, like, as confused or just, like, as, wait, what? Watching that game, because it was a complete 180. It was, this offense was just timid and flawed for 5 weeks or 6 weeks. Then all of a sudden, Jayden Daniels, and to answer your question, the answer is as simple as he was just absurdly confident. You know, like, he would drop back, make a read, and then just throw a ball up to a one-on-one. And like, his ability to throw a football was never the problem. So they were nice throws. I mean, his Arizona State stuff always showed that he made nice balls downfield almost every time. So having the confidence just immediately changed that. I know that sounds like too dumb and overly simplistic to analyze football, but like, yeah, he balls out there aggressively, like Kelly was asking in one-on-ones, and allowing that really great receiving core to thrive. And it opens up everything for this offense, because what have we been talking about every week is the fundamental thing with this team is their strength on offense is receiver, and it has been basically neutered through 5-6 games. So what that does is it takes you from a team that, I don't know, is like hanging, you know, like 30, 40s in the country, okay, you could win some games, to, if that version shows up, I don't know, that's a top 15 football team. Like, that's just the reality. And that's probably a big part of why this line is moving so much, and all that is it's hard to know what you're going to get. But if you have that version, this is a top 20 offense plus a good defense. This is a really scary team that opens up the run more, all those things. So, yeah, the ceiling is massive, but you have to see it at least one more time, and probably against Ole Miss.
This is an enormous sports talky question, but just because it was a very interesting one. Daniels comes back next year. It feels like they love Walker Howard and feels like he's the quarterback of the future. How do you see that competition at least kind of starting out next season?
Ooh, yeah, it's such a good question, and it's tough because when Jay Daniels first came here, like, every indication I had was that it was more like, he's going to try to get ready for the NFL and go. Like, so it's like the idea of him even being here a second year does just kind of, I would be still slightly surprised if that happens. But to your lovely sports talky question, it's tough because I've looked back at Kelly's history and he's done both, right? There have been times where he does want to get to that younger guy by a year or two. Like, he goes with the veteran first year and then wants to get to the younger guy. And there are other times he wants to play the guy he trusts. So there is I think I lean with you. I maybe if Jayden, because it's also, and I'm all over the place here, if Jayden Daniels plays like he played yesterday, he's good enough to go pro. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. And if he isn't playing like he played yesterday and it's still the same problem, then this discussion doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Where like then you actually do probably want to find the next guy. So I haven't my non-answer is I think it will work itself out because he's either good enough to go pro or not good enough, and you want Walker out.
Why, in your opinion, has this game jumped all over the place from a point spread standpoint? It started out with Ole Miss -3. Now it has LSU -1.5. What do the Sharks see? What are they looking at?
Yeah, what a fascinating jump on that. I think my gut would be the Jayden Daniels passing game. That would be my guess. Is that just like, hey, if this game's probably close to a toss-up in a vacuum, like if that's a wrinkle in this, then yeah, I think that's accurate. Like, if the Jayden Daniels version of this offense is real, LSU would be a 4 or 5 point favorite, right? Like, that is what this LSU team is with Jayden Daniels. So that would be my guess. And I think there's I've talked to some Ole Miss beat reporters. I don't think there's some injury going on that would change the massively change the spread or anything like that. I wonder if there's a little bit of just matchup stuff going on and just maybe seeing like, hey, maybe LSU is well built to face this run game. I don't know what the answer to that is, but my just gut guess is, hey, if Jayden Daniels can do this, that changes the entire algorithm of this game.
The wide receivers last week blew up. That is something that we were all anticipating and almost waiting on, I guess, by the point of the Florida game. What does that do for the offense? How does this change maybe what the play calling looks like going into the future? Did they do anything drastically different to get those guys involved last week, or was it just Daniels deciding, hey, I'm going to let it go?
Yeah, that's something I wish I asked Monday, so shame on me. Because I wanted to ask that same thing. It's such a good, was there something inherently different? It didn't look like it personally to me. It didn't look like there was some drastic thing. But I would love to know because, they were in the same one-on-ones. Those one-on-ones were there every other game. Mm-hmm. It's just, and Kelly's talked about this at length, it was, if a guy wasn't open, Daniels wasn't throwing it, and it was just learning, what was Burrow's superpower? If a guy had an inch, he just knew to throw it, and it's that's kind of what it is in the SEC. So I think the answer really does just come down to, I think Daniels suddenly was like, I'm going to let my guys go make a play. And yeah, we've heard so much about the players only meetings. And I think there's been a real come to Jesus discussions within those buildings about dude, just let us go make a play. I think it really might've been as simple as that. And so, yeah, to answer your question, these receivers are, I don't know, second best unit in the SEC. Tennessee's is pretty great. I don't know. But and you got to just find a way to maximize your strengths or else you're just limiting yourself as a football team. And you saw it. Brian Thomas is going to win 80% of jump balls. Kayshon Boutte, when you get him those chances, he's going to make plays. And he looked like a new receiver. And then, and Boutte had a good insight yesterday about, he thought those other receivers playing so well finally gave him more open looks too, and it was a bit of everything there. But yeah, man, that receiver room, when they're clicking, they have 5 guys that can start for most SEC teams.
He mentioned the tackles and him having 2 freshman bookends is something that he's never experienced in over 30 years of coaching. How much, not surprised because you've been covering these guys for a while, but just to see these guys competing at this level, at this point into their freshman season, you knew what you had in them, but to see it play out it's very impressive to watch firsthand.
Yeah, no, I will say surprised because it's just crazy. I mean, that is the one position, I'd say even above quarterback in modern football. That is the one position that you just don't see a true freshman ready to go. They might get thrown in there, but are they ready? And to see, and Kelly, I think, hit it on the head Monday, it starts with the fact that they are physically already some of the best guys in that room. That's where it starts. As much as talent, all that. Those guys were, Will Campbell and Emory Jones, both were some of the strongest and most athletic guys in that room. And that Will Campbell especially, and Emory, they have that mental toughness that Kelly talked about to handle a bad play, all that. And you watch Will Campbell all spring, and you're just even technique-wise, that guy just is matching up in a one-on-one with B.J. Ojulari. So I think it is surprising because it is so unprecedented. And it's also surprising because how often the last 5-6 years have you seen a good offensive lineman come in and just it never really happens, or it takes 2-3 years for it to happen. So maybe a little bit also you got to give some credit to the coaching, but it's jarring what's happening. And it's wild that Louisiana has failed to produce offensive tackles for so long. Yeah. And now they hit these 2. The next year you got Hurd and Tyree, and it's what is kind of happening here where suddenly offensive tackle is booming in Louisiana. Yeah,
it's like this quarterback run they've been on the last 3 years.
Great point.
I mean, it feels very comparable to that. What's the challenge that Kiffin brings in with this particular group? I mean, there's always Matt Corral. There's always the element of him. There's these big-time wide receivers. What's this group bring that challenges LSU on Saturday?
It's the best. I mean, it's probably the most tough to stop run game in college football. I think that's probably fair right now. It is, and David Ubben, my co-host on Football and Grits, has gone into this really well. But there's this huge misconception that Art Briles Baylor scheme was about the pass, and it spread you out. But that was the brilliance of that scheme, and I think I'm going to write something on it today. Is how it sets you up to just create massive gains in the run game, isolation, all this stuff. And so even the last 2 years with Ole Miss, talking to guys at Ole Miss, they're everyone thinks this is Matt Corral was the star. There's no doubt. But the core of even those last 2 Ole Miss teams were the run game. And this year you are seeing it full throttle where Jackson Dart isn't Matt Corral. He is an okay quarterback. He has yet to be tested in an SEC game this year. He has yet to have to win them a football game. But what they're doing is that run game is just elite. That O-line is creating pushes against some solid defenses. And they just really, they're so good at kind of, I'm not smart enough to really explain it, but like create these openings that look like little counter situations that just, you have nobody there to really, like, everyone's on their heels. So that run game is the key to this entire football game. And I know Jayden Daniels, if he plays well, they might win it. But everything comes down to that run game. Because if you contain that, and make Jackson Dart beat you, you win this game. I do believe that, but it's just easier said than done. Kentucky wasn't able to do it. Auburn wasn't. I don't know what happens.
Do you expect Armani Goodwin to go?
I think probably. I mean, I pause because I'm prefacing. I bet he's ready to go, but Kelly does have a history of, like, he's not going to give you a lot. You know, like, he'll let you play, but he'll ease you in. You saw it with Emory. You see it often. So I bet he plays. I doubt he's like the bell cow guy.
Jordan Brisker, who called in this morning, has a question, #AskBrody. What LSU running backs are returning next season, and do they go and get a veteran out of the portal? Cordell Music had a question right after that about the running backs, #AskBrody. Can John Emery come back?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would have to make 100% sure, but as far as I know, he should be able to come back because
the COVID year, right?
Yeah, first off, the COVID year, you're right. So, shoot, there might even be a world where he has 2 years of eligibility left. I'm not sure how an ineligible – I mean, obviously, we both know he would never do that. Sure. But to answer your question, I believe the whole room – am I wrong about this? Should be back. John Emery would have another year. I don't know if I would not blame him for just being like, just go to pro and show my talent. So, I'm not ruling that out. But – but Noah Cain's a junior, and he's not putting anything to go pro. Goodwin's a sophomore. Josh Williams is a junior, and again, he's not even though Josh Williams I think is so underrated, I'm going to go pro guy. So yeah, every single guy on that team in theory could be back. Emory might not, but most of them should be back. To answer that question, they have 2 running backs coming in that are highly touted. Yeah. You really like Goodwin and Williams. I don't think you have to. Would they like to? Would they be open to it? Of course. I think if there's a slot for it, but I wouldn't put it that high on the list because there's so many, corner probably will need a transfer next year. Maybe linebacker needs a transfer next year. Probably still building on the O-line at transfer. I wouldn't expect that to be a priority, but of course you're open to it because I don't know if you're sure you have the guy.
For as big of a night as Saturday was in the swamp for Jayden Daniels, I thought it was equally as big for Josh Williams. You mentioned it. Maybe not putting together film where he goes pro, but a guy that's turning into a very consistent college running back.
Yeah, I'll shout out our guy Kyle Caskey, who does great work on your show. When he was in LSU last year, he would say Josh Williams is an NFL running back because of what he knows how to do on third down, his pass protection, all that stuff. He will play in the NFL, and I'm always like, okay, sure. No, and Josh Williams is the most well-rounded, and it's the most common question I've gotten this year is just why is Josh Williams the starting running back? Why is it not Goodwin or Emory and all that? And I think it does start with knowing what to do. Trust is so big with Kelly, and Josh Williams is smart. He's one of the guys he's almost like a captain of this offense in a lot of ways. His pass protection, his stuff in the receiving game. He knows what he's doing, and he's been, to your point, he's been showing the last few weeks. He is more than that, though. Yeah. That 50-yard run was some real talent. And I even laughed when I asked him because it's he's mainly only been asked to do that short yardage stuff. And by the way, he succeeded at it. I'd love to see his success rate, but he's really good in short yardage. But to kind of get an open field chance and make some big plays, he's a really good running back. Maybe he's not as exciting as the other guys, but he's a guy you want in there most of the time.
I listened to the latest Football and Grits podcast. And you and I forget your co-host. I'm sorry. He was in Knoxville.
David Oven. No, you're okay.
David was in Knoxville. What did that game do for the landscape of the sport?
First off, it just made football a little more fun, right? Tennessee back in it is awesome, but it changed everything, and not everything, but it changed so much in the sense that Tennessee is back, regardless of what happens soon. Hendon Hooker put himself immediately at the top of the Heisman race. Tennessee put themselves in pole position to be in the playoff where if you lose to Georgia, you're still going to the SEC championship game. If you beat Georgia, you are in no matter what. What a thought we have that Tennessee might be – they're in the East. I'm an idiot. But you are in the driver's seat to make the playoff at this point. That's my point, even with the loss to Georgia. And it really does kind of rattle things because now you're at a point where how often does the SEC have 4 teams genuinely like looking like their top 8 teams right now? And how, Tennessee being back, what is that going to do for them in recruiting? They already have Nico coming back. I'm excited about this, and it just makes for a very juicy end of this college football season where Bama's clawing to get back, and Tennessee Georgia's going to be the biggest game of the season. And yeah, I can't wait.
LSU Ole Miss coming up 2:30 on Saturday. LSU obviously looking, and Brody, it's crazy that they still have control of their destiny to a degree, right? I mean, like if I'd have told you in August that LSU would come out of the Florida game still having a piece of the West up for grabs, where would you have landed on that?
I would have said there's very little shot of that. Yeah. And maybe that's the benefit of your first loss as a non-conference game. Kind of gives you a little bit of like a something to play for, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, I mean, this is
spin the Florida State loss into a positive. That's great work.
What if I told you Kelly lost it on purpose?
Yeah.
It goes back to my theory. LSU always goes down 14-0. Does Brian Kelly have a mission to implement spreads in real life? Maybe that's what he's doing.
Maybe he's live betting on the game.
That's right.
Yeah,
who's to say? Honestly,
yeah.
I don't want to throw out accusations, but it makes me think.
But
yeah, no, it is really impressive. And we talked about this last week. We referenced Hanny's quote that I think nailed it. Like, this season, by the way, they're still going to lose 1 or 2 games they shouldn't. Like, LSU fans, prepare yourself. It's not fixed. Like, this season is exactly where I expected it in a lot of ways. And I don't mean that as in I predicted it, but they are going to lose games they shouldn't, and I thought they'd go on the road and beat Florida. And I almost think they might beat Ole Miss, but then I think they'd probably lose to Arkansas. Like, this is a team that is good enough to beat anyone, and they're a team that is flawed enough to lose to anybody. But the credit I'll give them is the way that if you really, like, iron it down, they are improving every week. They are seeing a flaw and fixing it, which feels very foreign from the last few years. Of like week to week, you see something get addressed, and you have to give credit to that. There's a resilience of this team with the way they're coming back. Yeah, they probably still end this season 8-4, 7-5, and that will not change the fact that like I really think this program is in good shape. And to your point, if Jayden Daniels is Florida Jayden Daniels, they are actually in the mix to accomplish some big stuff this year, man. If that's Jayden Daniels, they could get to 9 or 10 wins. Like, it's crazy.
Great seeing you this morning. Good information. We'll see you in Tiger Stadium on Saturday, man.
Thanks, friends. Take care.